Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. I'm Aarti Krishnan. The focus that we have at this point is a story from China. China said that it was considering a coordinated arrangement for the return of foreign students, but maintained non-committal on a definite timeline to allow them, including the over 23,000 Indians who are in fact stuck and they want to come back home for the past 2 years due to Beijing's COVID-19 visa bans. Now, to a question on when China will permit the stranded Indian students and what is hindering Beijing to allow them, a Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian merely reiterated that his ministry has been saying for over a year that Beijing wants an orderly return of the students as per the safety protocols of COVID-19. Now, the students not being allowed back into China, and of course, the Chinese ministry then saying that they want it to happen in an orderly fashion. This is in a way hindering the education of several of these students who have been stuck back home, the 23,000 Indians who are stuck back home, and the COVID-19 visa bans in fact deterring them from pursuing their education back in China. I have former diplomat Ambassador Deepak Vora who's joining us on the broadcast. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir. And of course, we're talking about the fact that China is saying that it is considering a coordinated arrangement for the return of foreign students, but they have been stuck back home. The 23,000 Indians who have stuck back home, the students not being able to go back to China to pursue their and continue their education. Your thoughts on this sort of delay that is happening, sir?
Morning, ma'am. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure and an honor to be on NewsX to learn from you and from the millions of people who are watching. I trust you can hear me clearly?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much. 1936, there was a book that became an international bestseller. It still keeps getting published by a fellow called Dale Carnegie. It said, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The Mandarin version, which the Communist Party reads, is How to Lose Friends and Annoy People. China does not care who suffers as long as it gets its way, it lies through its teeth. Take the case of the ongoing Winter Olympics before I come to the students. Players and officials from democratic nations do not understand socialism with Chinese characteristics, which means do as ping pong says or else. Now, you know, we decided to stay away from the inauguration when China used a soldier who ran away from Galwan as one of 1,200 torch bearers in a sign of its imaginary victory in the Galwan clash. Instead of keeping quiet when we boycotted the inaugural ceremony, China tried to justify this election, asking India to, quote, view it from an objective and rational perspective and not from a political perspective. It claimed this election of torchbearers was broadly representative and they met relevant standards. No one knows which standards. Now, it's very interesting that they said that, take a objective and rational decision. So what is China doing as far as the students are concerned? You mentioned just now that there are, over 20,000 Indian students trapped in China because China will not let them in. What have the students done as far as the present state of India-China relations are concerned? The students have been paying money at the Chinese university to do their studies. Was any of these students involved in the Galwan clash? India has thousands of students from all over the world. We never use them as hostages to bilateral relations. China always does. Ma'am, this is the difference between an open democratic system and a closed autocratic one. Pakistan. Just last month, I think, Pakistan's funny foreign minister was caught on tape mocking ping pong. A Pakistani student asked why individuals from Malaysia were allowed to return to China, but Pakistanis were not permitted to return. And Qureshi replied, the foreign minister, even Jing, Ping, Ping, whatever his name is, doesn't go anywhere. Pakistani citizens have been barred from entering China since 2020. What's happening, man? I can only tell you this, that after Shri Imran Khan Niazi's fawning performance in Beijing, I'm not sure that the 30,000 Pakistani students enrolled in Chinese universities will be let back. I doubt it very much. China's record is very clear. When it has poor relationship with any country, it is happy to cut off its face to spite its nose. It doesn't understand the message it is giving. Many, many countries will say, well, let's not send our students to China because the day our bilateral relationship sours on any issue, Sri Lanka, for example, it's soaring at the moment, then they will hit out at our students. This is not the kind of message that China wants to send. The trouble is, ma'am, that in the course of their wolf warrior diplomacy, which they continue to practice, this is the inevitable outcome. China is losing friends, faster than a stone sinks in the Pacific Ocean.
Right, so recalling some of the developments that happened earlier, similar to this, there were in fact Australian educational institutions, there were educational institutions from the US who mentioned that it was really difficult for them to conduct business in China, and in fact several of them closing down some of their departments, the Chinese language departments, which were then, Harvard came out and did that, and several other institutions as well. Do you think this issue as well, where Indian students are not being allowed back there, where China pretends to care about the COVID protocols, when on one hand, conducting the Beijing Olympics, on the other hand, and saying that they're an orderly fashion and conducting of COVID protocols and maintaining COVID protocols is important. Now then, China is losing out on a major chunk of the educational investment, and at the same time, now, picking a fight with India again in this regard.
You're absolutely right, ma'am. You referred to the United States and Australia, where both countries were very upset that Chinese researchers, teachers, and students were actually fifth columnists, were being used to spy for China. There were several arrests in both countries, and people were sent back, etc. The lack of trust in China is very evident. Ma'am, no one believes what they say. Even in England, we were told that several thousand Chinese students, so-called students, had infiltrated top British universities and had set up little clubs, etc., to promote communist China's ideology. This may work for a little while, not in the long run. Ultimately, even the most the fittest long-distance runner, like China pretends to be, gets exhausted and stands exposed. So what they are doing with the students is trying to create another pressure point on India. As far as the military relationship, the military face-off between the two is concerned, it's no pressure point. Economics, they still want to sell to India. Politically, the contacts have been suspended for some time, especially after the Galwan clash. Cultural relationship at the moment is at an all-time low. Now, we did have this education thing, and these were mainly students, I'm told, in medical colleges who were unable to get admission in Indian universities because we did not have enough seats, so they went to China. This was the remaining element in our bilateral relationship. Trust the Chinese to damage even that. We haven't done anything to deserve it. The Chinese have, because their philosophy is very clear. China can never make a mistake. If its relationship with the United States is bad, that's the US's fault. If its relationship with Australia is bad, that's Australia's fault. If it's the bad relations with the European Union, that's the European Union's fault. If it's bad relations with countries in Africa, it's those countries' fault. With India, it's India's fault. It is never, ever China's fault. Because this is a legacy of their old philosophy of being the center of the universe, and every other country was a tributary. China hasn't changed, man, communist China. The sooner they do, the better it will be for them. But then who's going to teach them logic?
Right.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.